When people moved off the farm into the city, they took their children with them. What children find on the streets of the city does not appear to bode well for their future, nor for the future of the country. And so we ask, how can we lead children back to the farm?
Welcome to the award-winning Food Chain Radio Show with your host, Michael Olson. And now get ready for 1 hour of What's Eating What Radio.
Well, hello out there. You are tuned into the 1347th edition of the Food Chain Radio Show. Or hey, perhaps you're among our friends over there in Frankfurt who are tuned into the Food Chain podcast at metrofarm.com. Well, whoever you are and wherever you are, welcome aboard. I am Michael Olson, your host for this hour of What's Eating What. Folks, I had the good opportunity and good fortune to having lived on the grandparents' Montana farm when very young. I still remember to this day driving my first working tractor at the age of 6. It wasn't anything special. Grandfather Karl hoisted me up into the seat, put the tractor in gear, and said, "I'll meet you at the end of the field." Every living thing on the grandparents' farm had a job to do. Nobody, nor anything, got by without doing the work. It was not a policy laid down by the grandparents who owned the farm. It was just life. If one did not work, one did not eat. It was true for the people, the animals, and the plants in the field. We all participated in the business of life. Yesterday, I had the privilege of accompanying a couple of Montana boys, Braxton, aged 9, and Cohen, aged 6, to the first Major League Baseball game in a big city. Their enthusiasm for the game was infectious, and all who were seated around them in the stadium took joy in their excitement, especially when the 6-year-old won the scramble for a foul ball. As I enjoyed the boys' enthusiasm, I wondered how that enthusiasm would be met by life in the big city, in any city. On the farm, enthusiasm and love of living were always well nurtured by the business of life. But what in the city can manage and give guidance to the enthusiasm of young boys and girls? Not really finding a ready answer, I ask, how can we lead children back to the farm? Well, here to help us find an answer, we have a person who does just that. Her name is Jessica Ridgeway. She is the executive director of Farm Discovery at Live Earth. Jessica, welcome to the Food Chain.
Well, thank you. Hello.
Well, now I have a Jessica story. I was recently attending a Farm Bureau luncheon or dinner, annual dinner, and lo and behold, they have a 50-50 raffle. And Jessica Ridgeway won the raffle. But instead of taking the 50% cash, which was her due, she took her ticket and put it right back in the bucket. So, Jessica, why did you put the cash back in the bucket?
You know, I did it so quickly. I think paying it forward means a lot. And I am so blessed to have my job and do what I do. And a lot of that is fundraising. And so I think I just got caught up in the moment and wanted to put out there what I've been receiving for 16 years with Farm Discovery.
And I saw it, and I was very impressed, and a lot of other people did too. And paying it forward is what it's all about when it gets right down to it. And so thank you for doing that. That gesture meant a lot to a lot of people. So let's start with a brief description of two things. There seems to be two elements in what you do. One of them is Farm Discovery, and the other is Live Earth Farms. So let's start with Farm Discovery, and then catch up a little bit on Live Earth. Farm Discovery is what?
Well, Farm Discovery is the educational programs at Live Earth Farm. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We got started in 2007. We had a school approach us asking to have their kids out on the farm every Thursday of the school year. And Farmer Tom is a yes man, and he said, let's do it. It was part of the CSA model all along to have community out on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just luckily got put in touch with him about 2 weeks later. I had just finished a degree in sustainable ag education at the University of Vermont, and I was looking for more farming experience and a way to use my degree, and I really just wanted to do farm-based education. I wanted to get people connected to their food because it touches so many parts of us. It touches the environment, and it touches our health, and it is a place for community. And so I reached out to Tom, and he said, "Hey, great! I've got kids on the farm every Thursday. I have no idea what I'm doing with them. Let's figure something out." So I took a part-time job with Live Earth Farm, just learning to farm, getting picked apart by the workers who could pick so much faster than me. Mm-hmm. And got started on this project with the Santa Cruz Montessori School. With some devoted teachers, designed a whole program, and they are with us 16 years later, still coming every Thursday of the school year. And that gave us the opportunity to reach out to the community. We had a little bit of income from that program, and so I just started canvassing. I started asking people. I was new to the area, so I just started connecting with people, asking CSA members. I hunted for principals' emails and teachers' email addresses, and just started asking if there was a need for bringing kids to a farm to learn about where their food comes from and to learn how to eat well. And we got a huge response. We had 800 kids come out to the farm in the first year, and that was just because teachers and principals thought it was a good idea and started bringing their kids.
800 kids the first year. How many kids have you brought back to the farm, Jessica Prentice?
Oh my gosh, I don't have a total number, but it's about 3,500 a year now, including families. We have many of our programs are for adults as well, and for families.
So that's a lot of kids. So 3,500 a year for 16 years.
Yep, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
only 800 in the first year.
Okay. So the big question, Jessica, RIDGEWAY, Executive Director of Farm Discovery at Live Earth, why? Why do you bring kids back to the farm? What is it that compels you to do that?
Well, as Sylvia Prevedelli said when she won Farmer of the Year, everybody eats, right? It's something that we all share, and it's a way that we connect with each other, and we've gotten very disconnected from where our food comes from in a lot of ways, and it's so central to our existence and to our survival, and because it's so central, it also touches every piece of our lives. It touches our relationships with our family. When we sit down around the dinner table together, we connect. And it touches the environment. Farming well can be good for the environment, and farming in harmony with nature is actually creating spaces for wild animals and insects and kids to interact with ecology. And then it's also really a time when we're struggling with our health as a community, as a culture. And when you eat well, plant-based and not too much, you thrive. Mm-hmm. So getting kids connected to and touching food and picking food and growing food, they're much more likely to taste it and be willing to scarf down some broccoli at dinner time. So we're doing all of those things out on the farm, getting our hands dirty and climbing trees and and learning to eat broccoli.
Do you remember the moment when the apple dropped on your head? Gosh, at the farm, it might have literally dropped on your head, but that moment when you thought, we can do this.
Oh, this program? Well, I traveled a bit after I got my undergrad degree, and seeing the world really, meeting people from so many different places and in so many different situations, That's where it really drove home how important, water quality and access and food quality and access is to everybody on the planet. And that's when I decided that's how I wanted to do my part in the world. And food was compelling. I'm a suburban kid. My grandfather grew roses with all kinds of chemicals on them, and that's how I learned to garden. But traveling to places where people have, are living more hand to mouth and really are still connected to their environment, it gave me a window into what we could be doing and how we could be living.
But why children? Why did you focus on children?
Yes, because they have their whole lives ahead of them. They're all potential. They're all, they're excited about everything. It's very easy to get a kid excited about something, and it's all possibility with them. They have everything ahead of them. And the interesting part with kids is in some ways they have less agency, right? They're not necessarily the ones at the store choosing what's being bought for the family, but they will be. And the habits we form as children really carry through our lives. So if we can reach kids and get them excited about farming in a sustainable way and get them excited about eating in a healthy way, then we have a bright future.
And taking the boys, as I did yesterday, to see a Major League Baseball game, what was so fun to me was not so much the ball game, because I've been to a few, but in watching the boys' excitement at the game. And it seemed like everybody around the boys was relishing in their joy at being involved in the ball game. And so the joy that these two boys brought to everybody around them was very fun to see. Do you see that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. We do what we do every day, and like anything like that, you get used to it, right? So you get used to just the routine of things. But then a new kid comes to the farm, and when it's new to them, it is all excitement and happiness, and we really relish that. They bring something new every day, something new and exciting to the experience, and we're so lucky to get to be around kids. They're the best.
And lucky to have a place to do it, too, because there's a significant element in that. So it seems like everybody is happy participating in this program. Surely there's somebody that's not happy. Who is that?
Well, every once in a while we have, someone fall over and skin a knee or something. In that moment, they're not happy. But usually they figure it was worth it after the fact because they've just done something cool, like run over a log or, climbed a tree. Who's not happy? Gosh.
So there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're having fun today. We're taking children back to the farm to give them a taste of real life, which is hard to find on the streets of the big city where most everything is concrete and video. And not much real life there, but we're finding some back on the farm with Jessica Ridgeway, who is the executive director of Farm Discovery at Live Earth. And the question we have on the table today, how can we lead young back to the farm? Please do stay tuned.
The Pajaro Valley, hometown USA. Join us at the Pajaro Valley Chamber of Commerce Annual Awards Dinner and Auction on July 29th at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Celebrate the accomplishments of Trina Kaufman-Gomez, Dana Sales, El Vaquero Winery, Casa de Cultura, the Fairgrounds Foundation Crab Feed, and receiving Lifetime Achievement Guy George. For reservations, visit PajaroValleyChamber.com. That's PajaroValleyChamber.com. See you there.
When your business is on the move, you must find the right place for it to move. Hello, folks. Michael Olson here. When Santa Cruz Voice had to move, and move fast, we called on the power brokers at J.R. Parrish Commercial Real Estate in Santa Cruz, and they helped us move to the right place fast. Let's ask Matt Shelton, General Manager of J.R. Parrish, the big question: what is the right place to move one's business?
Location, location, location. Sometimes if you're in the service commercial business, location of your customers is important. Sometimes it's the location of your employees. Sometimes it's the location of the people that own and operate the business. Sometimes it's rent. Sometimes it's the fact that there aren't that many buildings available to suit you. But mostly it's location of your customers, location of the principals, location of your employees.
When your business is on the move, move it to the right place with the help of the power brokers at J.R. Parrish in Santa Cruz.
jrparish.com.
You have to move now. No problem. Store your stuff at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. 24/7 security. Drive it to your door and store it at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
You sold your motorcycle to a friend in Fresno and need to deliver it. Well, Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom has motorcycle and car trailers ready to go. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom. California coast to the fertile valleys inland. Earthwise Land Service is your land's best friend. Earthwise can clear it, mulch it, move it, sculpt it, grade it, drain it, or retain it, any way you choose. Earthwise Land Service is your land's best friend.
Hi, I'm Carolyn, and I have some property behind my home at Larkin Valley that I've never seen. It was completely overgrown with brush and poison oak, well over 10 feet high. I wanted to have it cleared to protect my horses from wildfires, but nobody could do the job. Then I called Buck at Earthwise. Buck brought out his big brush-eating machine and turned all the brush and poison oak into mulch. It was truly transformational. Thanks to Earthwise, my property is now like a park, and I can trail ride my horses.
Earthwise Land Service is your land's best friend. And now, back to What's Eating What on the Food Chain with Michael Olson.
Michael Olson and Jessica Ridgeway, Executive Director, Farm Discovery at Live Earth, a Vermont girl who ends up in California. That's quite a leap, Jessica.
Yeah, I actually grew up in Connecticut originally, and I started saying from about the age of 5 that I would move to California when I had the chance. When my parents took me to meet my cousins on the West Coast and go to Disneyland.
There you go. Well, I'm a Montana boy, so something similar happened to me, only mostly I think it was the surf music, 2 girls for every boy. And who could pass that up? I couldn't. So I'm a California boy now as well. And love the Golden State, hope it stays gold. And we're doing what we can to help it. Do so by reintroducing or introducing, I would suspect, for the first time, a lot of children to the farm. Is it their first time, Jessica?
We get a great mix. Santa Cruz is such a diverse county. We have kids from all kinds of backgrounds and a lot of engaged parents who, raise chickens because chickens are fun for kids, and a lot of families who have gardens, and then others who live in much more urban settings and have less access. Mm-hmm. But South County is full of farms, so most have at least passed one and noticed some food growing before.
It's hard not to in the county in which we live, but I suspect if you were in like San Francisco County or Los Angeles or someplace like that, hard for kids to find a way to relate to the earth. What was your thinking what was your objective, I guess, in setting up Farm Discovery? Did you have a mission statement, as it were?
Yeah, our mission is to empower youth and families to regenerate health in food, farming, nature, and community. The idea is food is where we connect with people. Food is how we nourish our bodies, and farms are where that comes from. So if we can all connect to the land in the way that it grows food, and do a better job of growing food with the land and with nature, then we can fix some of the problems we've created as a society.
Well, I think maybe you're right. And I'll have a quick, amusing little story. The two boys are staying with us, and of course, they being Montana boys, it's like meat and taters kind of diets. So my wife challenged them with some green beans, and said that if you eat 10 green beans, I'll give you $20 for the boardwalk. And
Awesome.
the looks,
Does it work?
it worked. And the looks on their face was truly amazing, because the 6-year-old said, "Oh, I can do that," and he actually liked the green beans, and the 9-year-old ate the green beans, but really had a sour look on his face. But at any rate, it was fun to watch, and that is exactly what we were doing, I guess, by connecting kids with their food and the possibilities of being able to eat other kinds of food. And on the farm, I suspect you get to introduce kids to a lot of different elements of food, correct?
Yes, yeah. It can take kids, up to 20 exposures to something to like it or to be willing to eat it. And so, but not all of those exposures have to be you have to take a bite. Sometimes picking it off the vine is one of those exposures. And certainly and being involved with growing food seems to really impact how kids are willing to eat.
So when you bring them to the farm, I think there must be a lot of kids that you bring. How do you manage that?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have lots of different spaces to work with the kids in, and we have animals. We have chickens and goats and a cow and pig and horses, and then our garden and fields and strawberry patch. So we have lots of spaces to spread the kids out. We have a staff of 6, and so, depending on the group, we usually have about 10 to 15 kids per staff person. We'd love to involve more volunteers in our larger groups. That's lots of opportunity for that during the school days. And we break them into small groups, and we do different things with them, and then rotate around the farm, and they get to see it all in the course of a visit. Right now we're running summer camps, and so they get to be on the farm for a whole week from 9 to 3, and they get a little touch of everything, including reading books about farming and art projects with nature materials and hikes all over. It's about 150 acres, so there's plenty of space for nice hikes up to a redwood grove and down to the big production fields. And then we have our smaller fields up top, and the reason for the fields up top in the garden are that when kids are farming, it is really important, or doing any kind of hard work, which farming is, it's really important for them to see progress and to be able to look back on the project and feel accomplished. So we really designed the size of the projects for the age group and for the number of kids that are doing the project, so that by the end of it, they can look back and really see success. So if they're going to weed a row of tomatoes, it's going to be the right size row so that when they're done, they can see that cleared out row and feel good about it. If we put them in the production fields, they would just be discouraged, and it would feel endless, and that wouldn't leave a good taste in their mouths, so to speak.
And so they get hands-on, so you actually put them to work.
Oh, yes. And most of the food that we're growing in the education fields is going to food pantries and meal programs. We started that project during COVID when everybody all of a sudden didn't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables because of logistics mostly. And so kids are getting to taste the food, but they're also, we talk about where it's going and about, how important having access to fresh fruits and vegetables is for our health. And last summer we had a kiddo who was about 8 years old get very excited about picking broccoli for the food pantry. He just thought it was the coolest thing in the world that he was getting to help get fresh fruits and vegetables to folks who didn't have access. It's a nice little circle.
So it is a complete circle. You're teaching them, you're allowing them to work first and foremost.
Yeah.
You know, I once did a documentary for NBC Magazine with David Brinkley on. It was called BT and the Seas, and it was about BT Collins, who Governor Jerry Brown hired to run the California Conservation Corps, which essentially was kids one step away from jail. You know, if you don't do the work here, you're going to jail. And so we followed. BT was a tough taskmaster. He was a Marine Corps colonel, light colonel. And so he had these kids getting up at 5 a.m, cleaning their bed, their spaces, doing their homework, having breakfast, and then going out and cleaning up the environment, doing hard work. And we followed BT for a week throughout the California conservation camps in California. But wherever we went, the children the kids, the young adults just poured out of their barracks, big smiles on their face, and they loved this man who was giving them work to do and rules to follow. That's what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think meaningful work, you know.
Yes.
It's kids understand how pretty intuitively how important food is. I mean, if you have raised kids or if you're around kids, it's constantly they're constantly snacking. You're constantly preparing food. It's what they do all day long to keep all that energy for running around. And so especially I think working with food and working in nature, they get to use their bodies, which feels good. They get to get dirty, which they enjoy. And when they're done, they've done something that's important and matters to other people and feels good for the community. And I think all of those things add up to a good experience.
Yeah. Now, there are 3 kinds of farms I see. There is the industrial farm. There are commercial organic farms, and there are community farms. I would say that there is a place for children on one of them, but not necessarily the other 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it does take a special space and accommodations. You know, yeah, you're right. There's huge tractors and, you know, heavy equipment and people working hard. And you do kind of have to carve out and make space for kids. I think it's possible in other, but Live Earth is definitely special. It is a really special, and we have so many ways for people to come see the farm. But we have lots of little nooks and hedgerows and, you know, places for kids and animals and insects to hide and corners to run around and fields we can run through. And, yeah, that's not always the case on a more industrial scale.
Well, you know, I think we live in one of the most productive agricultural regions in the world, bar none.
Yeah.
And some of our industrial farms are so tightly restricted into what they can do. They're afraid of birds flying over and defecating in the fields. They're that frightened.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could never put a kid in a field like that. There are also commercial organic farms that kind of do everything right, but still are industrial to the extent that they can't have kids running around. And by and large, almost all of the properties that they have are rented, and therefore you must use them to produce, or you can't stay there.
Right.
So Live Earth is entirely different and unique and focused not so much on, I don't know, the money, as instead it seems to be more focused on the community and the environment. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's a really different way of thinking about farming and nature and community. There's it kind of flips everything on its head. Live Earth Farm is successful because of those things, because of the community and because of the variety and because of the natural environment that's woven into it. And it's more of a thinking of nature in terms of balance and the complexity of an ecosystem, rather than trying to simplify it down to more of a factory-like setting where it's much more efficient, but that's not how biology works. So you cause problems in those settings just because you're not allowing ecology to work. You're not allowing predators to eat their prey, and it is maybe even not more efficient over the long run because it requires more inputs. It takes a lot of work to weed a row perfectly and to water it perfectly and to keep all the insects out. Whereas if you let nature do some of that work, you may produce less in that field at that time, but over time you're going to have healthier soil and more beneficial insects and more predators that can eat the bad bugs or the gophers or whatever. And the balance over time is, I think, going to work out for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen it over and over. We saw it during the storms this year, and we've seen it in other years where some farms, one crop will struggle, but we grow 50 different crops, so we never lose at all. We haven't yet. Should knock on wood. And we have cover crops on our fields, and so when it rains, the soil doesn't all run away. We grow perennials on hillsides, so again, the soil's not running away when it rains. And all of that, I think it is how we have to operate in the long run. Just taking from the soil and taking from nature isn't going to work out in the long run.
Yeah, I always think of F.H. King's Farmers of 40 Centuries, where the Western agriculturalist, Secretary of Agriculture in the year 1900, went to visit China and Asia, and to see how farmers there were able to sustain their farms, farm the same little parcel of land that had been farmed for 4,000 years. Without any inputs of modern times. And you scratch your head and go, how did they do that? And you're kind of following that model of what you do is you look at nature and you do your best to help nature help itself, rather than dominate nature with chemicals that kill everything in its path. You try to amplify the life and let it take care of itself. Well, this is the Food Chain Radio program, Michael Olson. We're going back to the farm. We're taking children back to the farm with Jessica Ridgeway, who is the executive director of the Farm Discovery at Live Earth. What joy it must be to watch these children spill out of the school buses onto the farm and reach down into the earth and pick something that's live. Wow. It must be like catching a foul ball at the ballpark. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
You can earn a substantial income by farming for the city. All you need to do is take your crop to market and win the competition for the consumer dollars. There is a well-proven strategy for winning this competition. You will find it embedded in Metro Farm, the guide to growing in or near the city for the city.
Port Ideas, Greg Williams.
There's a tremendous amount of useful information in Metro Farm for farming in or near the city.
Acres USA's Charles Walters.
Metro Farm tells how to convert an opportunity into a real going concern. Every chapter is organized around the logic of practicality. For every problem needing a solution, Metro Farm offers a progression of steps arranged in sequence so the desired goal is achieved.
Before you plant your seeds, pick up a copy of the Ben Franklin Book of the Year award-winning Metro Farm. Then plant your seeds and win the dollars. MetroFarm.com. MetroFarm.com.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-631-1768. 800-631-1768. 800-631-1768. That's 800-631-1768.
History buffs. This tale from Michael Olson's Tales from a Tin Can took place while the USS Dale steamed through the Bering Sea, January 1943.
We took some terrible waves up there. One time a big groundswell rolled us over so far I thought we'd never make it back. I was on the lee deck when the ship went over into that roll. Luckily, I was able to grab onto a bulkhead handrail, and when the Dale went over, my feet left the deck. I hung there with nothing between my feet and the ocean but air. I was scared. She went over on her beam, paused for a minute, then she shuddered and shook because one of her propellers was out of the water and thrashing air. Slowly, very slowly, she rolled back toward the vertical, and my feet found the deck again. That wave scared the devil out of me.
Tales from a Tin Can contains 424 tales by 44 sailors aboard the USS Dale, from Pearl Harbor to Tokyo Bay. Order your Father's Day copy at talesfromatincan.com. That's talesfromatincan.com. talesfromatincan.com.
So much to say, so little time to say it on the food chain with Michael Olson.
Well, how can we lead the young back to the farm, and why should we? Well, I think we should, because it would help teach them about life, the business of life, as it were, where we're all living and dying and enjoying it. And it's hard for children to see that in the city, really hard. The deeper you go into the concrete canyons of big cities. If you're out in the suburbs, maybe you can learn a little bit about watching Grandpa plant roses or what have you. And if you can have a taste of that farm, of actually working, of actually putting your hands in the dirt, what a blessing to give children, to take with them. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that if they get a feel for it, a taste of it, it will stick with them. I just read a piece about a young man in Shenzhen who is making his living coding for the computer manufacturers there. And lo and behold, the whole thing fell apart. So he moved back to the country, and he planted orange trees. And he enlisted one of his friends who was also a high-tech worker in Shenzhen. And now they're growing citrus, vitamin C for city people. And he went back to the farm. So maybe it's something that we can all hope for, that our children might find that opportunity. And so we have a model here. It's called Farm Discovery at Live Earth. And Jessica Ridgeway has been running the program for 16 years. Jessica, do you see in Farm Discovery a model that could be adopted elsewhere?
Oh, yeah, yes, and it is. I mean, there are farm and garden education programs all over the country. And I think it comes, the reason people are doing this is because farming is super important work, and we are losing farmers who are aging out of the possibility. it's hard work, and we've moved away from that a lot. But it really is a different it's a different life. It feels very different to be connected to land in the way that farmers are, and I know people are kind of hankering for that, and not everybody is, and we don't need everybody to grow food, but we do need some people to choose that life, because we're not going to survive without food.
I
than
think
a couple days.
Yeah, Jessica, I think we need the smart people to be growing food.
Yes, well, yeah, the way you grow it matters. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, people are hunting. Not everybody's satisfied with the video game, city life. Like that story you just told, it feels lacking sometimes. It feels lonely. It feels like something's missing, and something is missing. We evolved with nature. We evolved, living much closer to the plants and animals that sustain us, and that's why it feels so good to be around them, because it was part of how we, developed our culture and developed our bodies.
During the Great Leap Forward in China, Mao Zedong had to figure out what to do with his Red Guards that were running amok throughout the country. And so he sent them to the countryside. Chased them all out of the city and forced them to go back to the countryside and live with the peasants. And it was kind of an what do you do with kids in the city that there's nothing for them to do?
Right.
You got to find something for them to do that's meaningful. And when Mao Zedong sent them out to the country kind of took care of them. Brought them in, and this is how you plant a carrot.
Right.
Perhaps our country will sometime come to the conclusion that its children should go back to the country and learn as well. And what you put together here is a good start. So as kids go through their lives, they'll remember what you brought them to. I'm curious, though, how do kids react when you ask them to work at something?
It depends on their age. Yep. Younger kids love it. They have no problem with it. They can't wait. Adolescents are a little different. They take a little more convincing sometimes. They take a lot more breaks, and in that stage of life, the only thing that matters is your friends. And so, if you get a group of kids who are interested, then you get a group of kids who work hard and do it together. And because they're doing it together, they're lifting each other up, and it can go the other way as well. Mm-hmm. And you have to lead by example and give breaks where needed and encouragement, and like I said, projects that are doable. Nobody wants to look at the giant field of lettuce and think that they're going to have to pick that whole thing in the sun. So, reminding them that they have each other to work with, that they're, going to get this project done, that it's not going to take forever, and when they're done, there's something worthwhile, a huge flat of strawberries or a bunch of tomatoes that'll eventually be pizza sauce. And you just inspire by leading and finding the joy, and don't take away their opportunity to chat. Weeding next to each other is a great way to connect with someone, because you have your hands busy and you start talking and people will open up. And so just allowing for those opportunities, and not saying, hey, you're not picking fast enough because you're talking, but more encouraging all of the experience. And we have that, we have that luxury because we are not growing for market. We are growing for the experience.
Mm-hmm. And yet you are growing for market too, though, on the farm, are you
Yeah.
not?
Yes. But we don't have to be quite as efficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is the difference in the model. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think of some of the farmers in your neck of the woods have become very, very, very big growing organic produce, but do not own their land.
Yeah.
And so when you're in production agriculture like that, you rent land for very high costs, and you have to make certain that every square inch of that land is producing cash crops to pay for the bills, and that's just the way it is.
Right.
And
Right.
similarly, if you're in production, conventional agriculture, which is kind of like a big factory planted on the soil, you have investors, you have bankers, you have everybody looking at you saying, earn, 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 earn. And if you're slacking off, you're going to be in big trouble. So you have to keep things going. But when you own your property and you own your community, that when you're actually farming in partnership with your community, it's another story then. And that's the story that you're living, right?
Yeah, the CSA model was developed to support farmers, to allow the community to support their farmers. And a really important piece of it was that folks would pay up front before the season started when farmers had all their expenses and no income, and just invest for the whole season in that farm. And then the farmer would do their darndest to grow as much as possible for all those folks who invested in them. The rest of the season, fresh fruits and vegetables would show up on your doorstep or in your neighborhood. And it is a very different model than you typically see in farming. And farming's hard. It's tricky business. Prices change for what you can get. Food is undervalued in a big way, and we don't pay what it costs to grow it a lot of the time. And so farmers are in a pinch most of the time. And I think we are lucky to be so supported by our community.
And I think the communities, it gets right down to it. That's a reciprocal arrangement because a community is fortunate to have a farm that's growing for it.
Right. And we really did feel appreciated during the pandemic when folks started worrying about where their fresh food was going to come from. I mean, how lucky are we to be on the Central Coast in this salad bowl and to have, a number of CSA farms and these farmers markets that magically, amazingly stayed open. I know they worked really hard to make that possible. And we were really in a better place than a lot of people in the country when that happened because we still had access, but it certainly also made people appreciate that more. And they finally had time to cook, right?
There you go. We have time to cook and make stews and soups and things with wonderful foods.
Sourdough bread.
Life was good. And I think we learned a lot during that time too. I think it taught us about how precious things can be. Yeah. How did you go about selling Farm Discovery and Live Earth to the community in order to develop this incredible relationship that you have? I mean,
we really didn't have to sell it. Yeah, we asked the community if they wanted us and what they wanted from us and developed the programs around that. So there was no convincing anyone. They told us what they needed. And we work to provide that, and we are constantly doing that. I mean, we're seeking feedback on everything we do, and really designing it for what the community needs. If I heard, the pandemic was a good example. We obviously weren't running field trips all of a sudden, and weren't sure we would have a summer camp. But then essential workers had to go back to work, and their kids were home. So so we said, well, we'll take the kids. We'll figure out how to work in small pods and keep them masked and keep them outside and do everything we could to protect them and keep them safe while their parents had to go to work. And it worked really well. It survived, until kids were fully back in school. We had kids on the farm doing their schooling and doing a different version of our summer camp programs. And we were just in the right position to offer that because we already worked outside all the time. We knew how to do that. And we already worked with kids, and we already were educators. And so, the community said they needed us, and we stepped up.
What a blessing for parents to have their children be outside in COVID times.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was something the schools didn't really feel they could do for whatever reason, very different reasons at different schools. But it was a great solution to have, to just be in the fresh air.
Well, Jessica, looking into the future, what kind of future do you see for our children?
I think, they're going to have their work cut out for them, fixing all the problems we've created. But I do think that there's a lot of hope, and the kids are amazing, and they're resilient, and they're smart, and they're going to hopefully, with this generation growing up so connected to social media and stuff, I hope for them that they, and they do seem to already be this way, kind of more aware and really looking for health. They don't put up with people treating them badly, and they don't put up with feeling bad themselves. They really seek out the care that they need. I see that all the time. And I hope that they, realize that one of the things they need is to be outside every once in a while and to put a device down and just be in quiet or be in community and be physically active. And then, things will be fine if we take care of ourselves in that way and we take care of each other in those ways.
Do the children put down their electronic devices when they're on the farm?
Yes, yeah. We don't have like a strict, put it in the bucket policy, but we don't. There's no time for being on a device while they're on the farm.
Amen to that. Amen to that. There is no time for that when they're on the farm. Wow. Jessica Ridgeway, Executive Director of Farm Discovery at Live Earth Farm. What a blessing to have you on the show today. And thank you so much for that gesture, that spontaneous gesture of winning the 50-50 and giving your 50 back to the farm community, perhaps in the hope that it will help foster an even better farm community. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for taking care of our children. This has been The Food Chain. Remember Michael Olson's third law of the food chain: cheap food isn't. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Michael.
You've been listening to the award-winning Food Chain Radio Show with Michael Olson. And if your friends missed the show, tell them to log on the Food Chain page at metrofarm.com for a listen. Now, go out and find some food with its farmer's face on it and live.